To be joined on the line here by Vince Mercuri from the Open Door. And Vince is brought to us this morning by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Vince, good morning.
Good morning, Todd. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. Hey, we've talked before during this pandemic about various issues, well, we need to catch up with you a little bit and find out again about how folks are doing with addiction issues during the pandemic. And we've got some disturbing stats about suicides are up and drug addiction or drug overdoses are up, things of that nature. And we want to know, is that really the case? Are you seeing that to be the case at the Open Door?
Well, typically, Todd, any time that there is uncertainty, that fuels people's anxiety. And with that, people start to self-medicate by using different drugs, and they also start to, unfortunately, start to decompensate from a depression standpoint, which certainly can lead to suicide, to try to, in an unhealthy way, cope with some of the uncertainty that's going on in our culture. What we have seen locally is that our crisis line has not really seen a huge influx in calls, but the calls that we are getting are extremely intense. There are some folks who are maybe, cowering in fear in their basement, concerned about COVID-19, and so they're not handling some of the uncertainty and stress that goes with that. So the intensity of our calls, particularly in the crisis line, has certainly been increasing. We are also seeing, related to that with the crisis line, the people that are drinking and increased drinking because of the uncertainty in the COVID-19. They're drinking more and they're ending up at the emergency room because they're intoxicated and then needing our services as well. Typically, with most social dysfunction, it takes time for the dynamics to occur before people get to our front door. So we haven't seen like an influx in our drug and alcohol treatment participants because of COVID-19. Where we actually saw a decrease because of foot traffic, and we went a lot of telehealth. But certainly the numbers that you're reading are accurate nationwide. That there is an increase in some of these social issues like suicide and drug usage and overdose. But it usually takes a little bit of time to get to the treatment providers. The emergency rooms will see it first, then they get the referrals, and then they end up at our agency. Yeah. People are struggling, though. There's no doubt of that.
Yeah. I guess that warm handoff that we talked about a while back is something that it does take a little bit of time, but the sooner people get into a treatment program or get at least the counseling from treatment professionals such as those at the Open Door, obviously the better.
Yes. It's a big step to call somebody and go in for help. And, there's a tendency, particularly with addiction, particularly with mental health issues, there's a tendency for everybody to keep their head in the sand and be in denial, whether it be family members and loved ones and neighbors and so forth and employers. Everybody wants to believe that, it was only, 3 beers when it's really 12 beers, or it's, their depression isn't that bad, where meanwhile they're not taking care of themselves and haven't gotten out of bed for 3 or 4 days. Mm-hmm. So there's a tendency to deny the reality of what's happening, and there's resistance to get help. Where with medical issues, sometimes there's a little bit of denial and resistance. But if somebody's having, heart issues, they're going to hurry up and get help. Or they're going to have high blood pressure issues. They're going to hurry up and get help. That's not the same with behavioral health issues. We all want to pretend and hope that it's okay and it's not as bad as we think. And so there's that built-in tendency to deny and to be resistant to get help, particularly with mental health issues and drug and alcohol issues.
Yeah, and especially when you consider that people who have other medical problems aren't going to be surrounded by people who are having the same other medical problems, whereas somebody who is, for instance, having a problem with alcohol could be around others that are drinking alcohol and don't have the same sorts of problems that they do.
Well, and that's why we tend to have family members and spouses and so forth who deny it, because they're participating in it. They're going to the bar together, or purchasing the alcohol together online and having it delivered to their house or wherever. And so they're partying together, they're participating as well. So if I'm with you, Todd, and I'm saying that you have a problem, but yet I'm doing it with you, what's that say about me? So, if I think you need help, well, then maybe I need to look in the mirror and get help for my own issues.
Yeah, we can certainly see that.
That's a real threat to people, to take someone for help, because then they got to look at their own issues.
Yeah. All right. So what are some of the things that we can tell folks, or how are you going about, what's the approach when there is increased anxiety, whether it's coronavirus or something else going on in their life?
Yeah, I think, the point being that, there's not a set of stress management skills or coping skills for COVID-19. Coping is coping and stress management is stress management. Unfortunately, what has happened and evolved over the past, maybe decade or so, is we've become this culture of hopelessness. People don't have the skills that they need. So taking care of ourselves, it's the simple thing. It's getting the rest that you need. It's eating healthy, exercising, trying not to project. I read something recently that the greatest sources of anxiety in our culture are our safety, our health, and our finances. And when you look at the devastation that has happened with COVID-19, it has brought into question our safety, our health, and unfortunately for a lot of people, their finances. So the simple things, getting enough rest, eating healthy, relationships, talking to people about your issues, and maybe what some of your fear are. Anxiety tends to paralyze us. When there's uncertainty and we're not sure about our daily structure, that anxiety paralyzes us. And then we tend to almost go into this self-fulfilling prophecy where we isolate or we act out, which pushes people away from us. We need people, but unfortunately during COVID-19, we're farther away from people than we've ever been. Now, certainly healthy social media, like we're doing telehealth and reaching out to our clients to keep them connected. But we need fellowship. We need relationships. And with COVID, we're getting less of that. So I would say press in, be diligent in taking care of yourself. Our mental health doesn't just happen. We have to work at it. We have to watch what we take in. I've read a lot of things about this that say really, limit what you take in from a media standpoint. We're not saying don't watch anything but be careful that you're just not oversaturating yourself with the models and the statistics. Like even right now, every time you pick up a TV or an article or something to look at and read, it's the projections that it's coming back. It's going to be worse. It's going to be the wave coming in September. All of that just fuels our anxiety. Now, obviously, we want to practice social distancing. We want to wear our mask as appropriate and do those things. But we don't want to saturate ourselves with so much of this fear. Fear is so paralyzing. And it's interesting when you look at the social unrest that's going on as well. And obviously, the protesters are legitimate. The rioters are not legitimate. But so much of that is fear-based. And when we have this fear, we tend to externalize it and make it more aggression and hostility. And so we really want to try to just take care of ourselves, spend that extra time making sure that you're reading healthy things, watching healthy things, and connecting with people in an interpersonal kind of way. Don't isolate. Isolation fuels the fear. Fear fuels some of the hostility and the blaming and the defiance that goes with that. So we really need to be intentional and actively work on taking care of ourselves.
He is Vince Mercuri, the Open Door. Vince, people want to take advantage of your services. What do they need to do?
Well, for our crisis line, and certainly, if it's related to drug and alcohol, our crisis line can do a pre-screen over the phone that's free and confidential and hook you up with treatment for drug and alcohol. And if it's mental health, our crisis line obviously is the experts in the area in that. So the crisis line phone number is 877-333-2470, and we have telephone, mobile, 24 hours a day. and we have walk-in services Monday through Fridays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and on the weekends and holidays from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. For our drug and alcohol services directly, that would be 724-465-2605, and just inform the person who answers the phone that you're trying to get help and you need some intervention and a pre-screen to do that. So those services are available for people that are out there.
Vince, we appreciate it so very, very much. Thanks for making the time to be with us today.
Oh, Todd, it's always a pleasure, and we appreciate you and what you do for our community as well. You have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Thanks.